Hello? Oh, okay. Sorry. I did, can we close the doors, please? So it's, okay, thank you so much. So first of all, thank you and welcome to another event of Torino Show Film Market. My name is Enrico Vannucci. I'm one of the programmers of Torino Show Film Market here, and I'm your host for this panel, which is called, as you can see, The Usual Suspects question, an honest and amusing discussion on serious matters about programming choices in the short film festival circuit. Before we start, I would like to tell you that this talk is part of ViennaShorts now, which is a series of industry meetings and panels focusing on short films created by the Torino Show Film Market and Gijón International Film Festival. And actually, this week actually, sorry, I need to find, on the 21st, there was this talk that I will, in Gijón, which was called, Festivals, the Films, the Audience. And it was an event talking about the role of film selector, curators, and programmers in relation with the audience. And it featured intro from Massi, a video intro from Massi, and the panelists were Jukka-Pekka Laakso from Tampere, Vanessa Fernandez, the director of Zinebi, and Stefan Ivancic from Locarno, and Bianca Lucas from Sarajevo. So the two panels are together, and this is very important. Parental advisory, explicit lyrics, especially knowing this guy next to me. We might be strong language, so just I warn you. But it might be, so just to warn you. And these are the panelists. So we start from this guy here, who is also very responsible together with me about this panel, Massimiliano Nardulli from TSFM, and Lim, where is the head of programming at Lim. Then next to him, Daniel Ebner, who is the director of ViennaShorts. And next to him, Anne Gaschutz, who is the factotum at Filfest Dresden. And then Rich Warren, director of Encounters, and me as moderator. To give you an idea about this, and to start, I would like to start from something that I wrote when I was still a serious person a few years back, and I was like at the university. This was a panel that a talk that I gave at Milano, at a conference, a cinema conference. It was called Mapping Hubs and Flows, and it was a panel, a talk about the distribution and trade system of Show Film Festival Network. Basically, I choose a list of festivals. In the end, there were 21 festivals chosen by these 5 criteria, and for the years 2012 and 2013, I analyzed their catalogs in order to find out if all these festivals were showing the same films or not. In order also to understand if this is a true assumption or not. Because it was an assumption that was believed at that time, was told. I listened a lot to that assumption, and especially from what's her name? I forgot her name right now. Somebody from the Greek Film Center, Stavroula Gerominaki, sorry. And so I said, okay, let's try to find out if this is true or not. So I choose basically festivals regarding their historical importance, current prominence in the country, if they attended or not the Cremona market, their location, and if they had or not an extensive catalog of show films. So these are the festivals in the list: Clermont, Oberhausen, Minimalen, Tampere, Uppsala, Go Short, In the Palace, Courtage, the Villa du Conde, Winter 2, Encounters, Glasgow, And for Central and South America, Guanajuato, Sao Paulo, ViennaShorts, Asia, Asiana, and Sapporo. And then feature film festivals with like important, let's say, short film selections, so Rotterdam, Berlin, Cannes, Locarno, and Venice. Just to be brief, of these 21 festivals, I found 2,345 different short films in competition. I just analyzed the competition, not the side programs. And the 82% of these films did not get into any of these more than one festival. And 421 went to 2 or more festivals, 146 to 3 or more festivals, to 57 at 4 or more, and 25th to 5 or more of these 21 festivals. Of only these 7 films went to 6 or more festivals. So 6 festivals for Tram. I think it's an animation that everybody knows in the short film circuit. Irish Folk Furniture is a documentary that was really famous a few years back. Premature by Gunin Henger, really famous and awarded film. Mysterio by Chema Garcia Ibarra, and Story for Modelings, Sergio Oskman, and the Brain Project by Till Novak. And then the only one that got to almost half of these 21 festivals was O Willy. If you count like the ones that require a world premiere, it's even more than the 50% actually, if you don't count them actually. And then final thing is that I analyzed 3 of these films, A Story from the Modelings, Tram, and Mysterio. You can see that Story from the Modelings was featured at 209 festivals in those 2 years, 2012 and 2013. Tram was featured at 158 festivals, and Mysterio was, again, 154. And you can see they were shown mostly at short film festivals, and also a lot to feature film festival with a short film section, and then some specific festivals. These are like the assumption, but I'm not gonna talk about those, about the end of that speech, because they are boring. And so, just to give you an idea, so basically it was, from my research, it was not true, that assumption was not true. The amount of festivals that I scanned was not that big, it's true, so probably enlarging the target will give different results. But instead, like this summer, this man here wrote this post on Facebook, or this rant on Facebook, and he said something different in a way. And it's something that, like, empirically I would say the same. But he wrote this. So I'm very troubled by the role of film festivals in some countries. As programmer doing this job since around 11 years, I feel very surprised to observe that not only some festivals don't help that much the development of a different cinematographic approach for the new directors, but also they give a stronger contribution to destroy the storytelling and the connection with a larger audience. It might hand having festivals with films of the usual suspects of the festival circuit, the friends of and the friends of the friends, the followers of the sacred word of festival gurus, and the copycats of this is the cool wave right now. Well, yes, I'm afraid it will become just a glass bead game of complacency and self-centeredness. So, as you can see, his point was like kind of different from my study. And my first question to Massi, of course, is like, what happened that morning? Why you got up and you said, oh, I'm fed up with this, and so I'm gonna tell people that the shit.
Hello. First of all, normally I don't write so well, so in English, my English sucks, but that morning I was very inspired to write, because well, what's happened? First of all, I want to just do a little bit, a step behind. Your research is very interesting, but in 5 years, and we were talking before about this, in the last 2006 years, the world of short film, in my opinion, changed quite a lot. It's totally different. I mean, I started working 12 years ago, 11, 12 years ago, and now it's a completely different job, in my opinion. So your research, I think that if you update the research now, it will be slightly different than the results that you had. But I receive quite a lot of invitation in festival, and I like to go to explore other film festival. And I started checking in most of them, the program. I like to see what festival I'm going to watch, what film I'm going to watch in a festival. And I just start to say that almost a big number of very important festival, they almost select the same kind of film. They were some people, they were every year, maybe with a new work, but doing always the same, be always selecting some festival. And I say, okay, it's very nice to have a moment and sharing experience, sharing a festival with fellow friends and colleagues from a festival. It's not an accusation for you because I love you, you know. But it's just totally useless that I move from Romania, where I live, in the opposite side of Europe, for example, to go to watch film and filmmakers that you already know. And it's also a reaction because I love to talk with the audience and I love to talk with the filmmakers. And a very, very common feedback that I had is that, why we are never selected in this festival? Why? Or also distributor, also producer. Say, my film, they never reach, I don't know, Winterthur, for example. I was working, I can tell this name. Because we are like not the cool producer that have their film there, for example. So I start to have this kind of questioning myself in the beginning, because also I'm programmer since a long time and for different festivals, and say, okay, I think that in some way there is let's say a play safe or just something that is not very good happening, that for different reasons, maybe can be a personal taste, maybe it can be, I don't know, the artistic decision of the festival or the artistic way, but it's true, I just started to consider and thinking about so many different festivals, and it's true that there was always a big number of filmmakers of film that they were doing the same festival, especially if they are trained by or starting the career in a important festival. So if they go selected in Berlin or in Cannes or Clermont or whatever else, some festival, smaller, but not only, they think that they are like quite forced or they have to select this film because otherwise in the group of the festival circuit, we see, oh, you just didn't select this film, why? So I was very, very confused in the first moment, and then I say, okay, I think that it's something that we have to point out between us on the film industry and say why there are not so much variety of film, because I think that all of us, we have a lot of film every year, but very often the final choice go for someone that we already know or is already film that they are already in the circuit. So this was the beginning of this nice adventure, and yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, nice adventure actually. Since this post, well, as you can see, it received 22 comments. But it was like really, if you go deep in the comments, you see many mostly short film programmers, but also director commenting very, like I would say, in a very thoughtful way about this issue. And so it's really interesting to have a look. I think the post is public. I think you put it public because somebody had also reposted this, and so if you want to go, you can just log to his Facebook page and see it and read all the comments. What? Okay. And so I'll ask Daniel and Anne and Rich what they think about this, if they agree with Massi or not. And I mean, what you think about, as you said, these time different between 5, let's say, years ago, or 5, 6 years ago to now, if it's true or not that something in the circuit, festival circuit has changed, or if you agree or not, whatever. So.
Okay, I think there's several points that that we could make reading this post, and I think it might be also a bit too simplistic to come up just with one answer, one simple answer. I think on the one hand, or maybe the easiest comment would be that, of course, as a programmer, you would normally not program, I mean, maybe at an industry festival, but normally you wouldn't program for an industry audience, but for the local audience. So many films that are presented at many festivals are presented there because they are good, and of course you, as a programmer for your city, you also want to present those good films to the local audience in your city. But I would definitely agree that then again, the whole festival scene has changed a lot. Not only, I think, in the last 5 years, but probably in the last, I don't know, 20 years. I also just looked up a few numbers because I did at the university. I did a small lecture at one point, and I did a lot of research about how the festival scene developed, and that was in 1995 we had 500 festivals worldwide, and in 2015 it was around 4,000, and no one can really tell if the numbers might be way higher. The good thing on the one hand is that 70% of these festivals present short films, so also a lot of feature film festivals present short films. The bad thing about it is that, of course, there's a lot of festivals now happening in the same cities or in the same areas, same regions, and they do present the same films, and they start repeating themselves, which is then, I think, maybe more a lack of a profile of a festival, or a lack of a certain start or certain thinking when you start a festival, like what do we want to present there, and what do we want to show? Because if, of course, if all the festivals, even in a city like Vienna, where we now have, I don't know, 25 or 30 events that call themselves festivals, if they all show the similar films, then it gets a bit boring. This is just for a start. I could go on for a while.
I remember that post, and I have maybe first a question. Who are you talking about? Are you talking about anything, any specific festivals or any specific people?
Yes. I started watching the program of some festival that I was supposed to, let's say, plan my year to go to festival, and they say, okay, let's wait for the selection. So I see some festival, and they say, okay, why I have to come back to this festival to watch film that I already know. So, you know, just like the festival circuit, okay, it's nice to meet friends and nice to be with it, but I think most of the film I already knew it. So it was, and then checking different program, and they say, okay, but I just realized that it was a little bit the same filmmakers or the same films, not always the films, but also the filmmaker, but this is another thing, that they were there. So I say, I have the impression to have I don't know, something like a Groundhog Day. So every year it's the same thing, the same people, and that we were a little bit closing the short film industry. It was a little bit closing too much in its circuit. There are festivals that are friends. We always the same people travel in the same festival. I can do the experience of Winterthur because I was working, so I can tell. I mean, I have years in Winterthur that I didn't remember, or Clermont-Ferrand, I can do the same experience, that I didn't remember if I met person the day before or 2 years before, because it was always the same people, always the same talks, always the same stuff. And in some moment I say, okay, I'm not going anymore, and I start to go exploring a smaller festival, trying to find in other places, in other festivals, in other maybe totally different way of programming. So was mostly, I mean, for me it was mostly for bigger festival of the circuit, because I lost as a programmer the interest to go. And I imagine that the same as programmer, you can do the same for a public, and there's also the filmmaker that are say, okay, I'm not sending my film anymore to, I don't know, Hamburg, because anyway I will never be selected, because every year there are the same 5 directors that have a film there, for example. This is a feedback that I had several times, you know. So this is.
I mean, I understand the feedback, I get that as well, but on the other hand, I would say, I mean, I would assume that every or most festivals, they also want to find something new. I think that's what we all want. We want to find that one new film that will go and travel the festival circuit. So we also look for new things, but of course, like Daniel said, and I have to agree, we also want to show our audience the films that have been around. And I might be bored of that film at that point because I've seen it 10 times, but our local audience hasn't seen that film. And for Filmfest Dresden, I can say that we have an independent selection committee. So the people who are on the committee, apart from me, I'm also on it, but but the other guys, they don't work for us. They are independent, and we have no rule. Nobody tells us which films to select, and it's a very, not democratic, but we discuss the films, we watch the films, and I mean, they don't travel around the festivals all the time. They get the films that are submitted, maybe that also the films that I watch, and I ask the filmmakers to submit, but then I still have to go through the whole process of talking to 4 other people to get the selection done. And I mean, they also, like, Oh Willie is a good example, because I think that's the first thing that was at my first festival edition. It's a film that had been around to so many festivals, and we were discussing exactly the same thing. Should we select it? Because it's been around so much, but it's a really, really good film. That's why we have to select it. You know, and it won an award, I think, at our festival. And yeah, so. But I can, for us, honestly, it's an independent thing, and the independent selection committee, they do choose also, of course, similar films. Sometimes, not always.
But in some way, you don't have the impression that the industry is going, also not only films, but in general, it's a little bit repetitive. I mean, it's like the same filmmakers. Okay, can be no film, but maybe can be, let's say, a kind of film, or some director that are in all the festival. I mean, you don't have this impression? Just curiosity.
I mean, of course, there are festivals that have similar programming, and including us, we have similar programming to other festivals, but it's a choice we made a long time ago that we screen a certain type of film or have a certain kind of profile or whatever. We're never gonna screen real, we're not screening documentaries. We don't screen like experimental films. We are more in the narrative and animation section. So but I mean, we will. But there are also other festivals who have sort of the same or similar films. So of course, films are going to overlap. But at the same time, we also every year have films that are fairly new at our festival, or not many that haven't been to many other festivals. And I think you also talk a lot about the people, that we meet each other all the time, of course, because we travel, but it's our job. So, I mean, what did you want us to change? Like, I don't know, what's...
Maybe you travel to the wrong festivals if you want to discover things. But I mean, this is a thing I often ask myself as well as a programmer. Okay, what is the need now to go to this festival when I know all the films anyway, and I meet the same people that I will meet 1 month later at this other festival as well, and their programming might be a bit more interesting or whatever. I think this is definitely a thing. On the other hand, the thing that you mention always, that festivals pick the same filmmakers in like several times in a row, it's also maybe something that that you want to follow career, of course, because this is also interesting to see like how people are developing and how filmmakers are developing. Yeah, but I think it's also maybe a choice that we have to do ourselves, and I would agree that many profiles are not very, like many festival profiles are not very well developed. So, for example, when we talk about Ovilli, we didn't show it at that time. We didn't show it in the competition, but only. No, well, actually we had it in competition, but it's a bad example. But we had other films that we didn't then take in competition because we knew that they were around so much, and they are probably in either the Short Matters program, or with all the nominees of the European Film Awards, or they are in the Golden Knights program of the French Academy. So sometimes it doesn't also make sense to have films in a competition anymore, but still you want to make them available to an audience, so you maybe find some other, yeah.
Rich, what's your take on this?
Firstly, thank you for giving me the Brexit seat on my own, close to the edge. Just keep it light-hearted a little bit. Look, it's a problem, but I mean, it's really about getting back to this point about who is the festival for? And films do travel. It's good that films travel and that have a festival life. An example of what happens if you don't is there was an art gallery in Bristol, and there was a curator there, and no one ever really used to go to the exhibitions because they weren't brilliant. And you asked him, who are you curating for? And he would say, without a shadow of a doubt, other curators. And yet they had no audience. That isn't what film festivals exist for. It's about audiences, and sometimes there is a replication of that. I also think there's as you pointed out, things are changing in the short film industry. The last 5 years there's been some dramatic changes. The last 10 years, 15 years, there's a lot more short films. As programmers, as selection committees, we suffer from short film fatigue. Sometimes it is easier to pay more attention to a film that has a pedigree than a film that is brand new. I'm not saying that's always the case, but if you're on your 40th film of the day, you look at where it's screened. So there's that to consider. But getting back to this idea, this changing community, just to talk about, social politics a little bit, the short film industry is growing up. There's lots of us now having a career working within the short film industry, either as a festival director or as a distributor, sales agent, something. So we start knowing each other. We start becoming our peers. And then you suddenly get peer pressure. Oh, you screened that film. Oh, well, I better screen it then. I'm not saying that happens. That's not the good. But subconsciously, this is happening as well. This idea of who do you want your festival to be like? Oh, I want my festival to be like Berlin. I must screen the Berlin films. There's these things that seep into the consciousness because we are now part of this peer group, and this all kind of influences why these films travel. But you're right. Just as a pure estimation, there's 15,000, 20,000 new short films every year being made. The old adage of when you were letting a filmmaker down because they hadn't got into your festival, you would say your film isn't for every festival, but there is a festival for every film. That's not really the case anymore because there's too many bloody films. So is there another way of getting more opportunity in the scene? I'm interested in that point that you made on there, regarding the development of a different different approach. There should be that opportunity. Short film is this innovation playground. It is the R&D of the film industry. And that's the stuff that we should be showcasing. And taking risks on. And I think what I took from this post was very much that the risk-taking is going out of programming. We're not taking those risks on the films. We're playing it safe by showcasing films that have screened elsewhere. But it's what opportunity has the filmmaker got by screening at your festival. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Probably the things that that we have become a proper industry, like strong and, as you say, like proper industry, film industry. Also, it's influencing the freedom that we have. I don't know. Of course, there is the premiere status that it's very. Maybe Enrico can tell something about this as well. And there are not only this, but I mean also the responsibilities. Okay, you have to do a film. When you have a market, you have to be a competitive market in some way. So, I mean, I have the impression that the pressure is so big, as you say, that it's also influencing the freedom and the taking of risk. Yeah.
From this point, I would like to read you briefly some good point, actually, that, sorry, Gaia Meucci, so, works with Reach at Encounters, wrote me. She wanted to come, but she couldn't, so she was really nice to write me some points and about what Massi said in this post. And it's, I think, one of the, well, she wrote several things, but I will just focus on this one, which is what she calls the cult of the curator phenomenon. And basically she said that in the last 3-4 years, the short film circuit has transformed from what used to be a very supported network, supported both towards other festivals and towards the filmmakers, into a bit of a cliché. This phenomenon affected certain festivals in particular. All of a sudden, what I could see on social media, in the conversation and the posts by programmers of such festivals, was rarely about filmmakers, rather about how cool and niche their festival was and how much fun and drinking had at their festival parties. This was quite entertaining at first, but soon it started being pretty annoying. It seemed as if all of a sudden the curators had become more important than the films, and that the festival mission was to raise their own profile rather than delivering a service to the filmmakers. It became about making a mark as a curator rather than supporting emerging talent. I guess Massi agrees 100% with Gaia, I guess. Yeah, of course. But I would like to know what you think about this, and also would like to open the group therapy session with the audience right now. So please be brief, and then we can ask somebody, because we want to hear your own voices, because we promised the group therapy sessions. Here it goes.
I mean, I would agree a bit with Gaia, but I think it's not only for the short film festival. I think it's for the festival scene in general, that sometimes the curators got a bit more important, or you have the feeling at least that they got more important than the films sometimes, and the filmmakers. This is also maybe relating to what you said, or what we I think agree, that we do show, or we all stated that we do show films for an audience, but at the same time, if we program films that are more, I don't know, more conventional in the making, if they are more funny or trashy or whatever, they definitely get more audience than the competition programs, definitely, and these are the programs that sell out the earliest. So in a way, we're also we take ourselves in a way more important, and telling people like, okay, but these films are the good films, and these films are the films that should be presented and should be considered as competitive films. So I'm not so sure if we are really or truly honest to ourselves in this whole process. But then again, also what I think it's interesting that there's so many festivals out there, also so many short film festivals out there, and then you don't even have these, or you often don't have this, division in what you want to present. Like all short film festivals that we're talking about now, or most of them, they're showing everything. It's basically like from documentary to fiction to animation to experimental films and so on. So there's not a lot of I don't know, focusing or specializing on something, which would be possible as well, I think, and would also maybe talk to some people from an audience even more, because it might be also more interesting than to know, okay, this is exactly the field where I'm interested in, and maybe a niche where I'm interested in. But a short film festival, what is this? I mean, most people don't even, like, if you ask someone on the street what a short film is, most people can't even answer this question. And then most of the other people who would be interested in film also would say, like, yeah, but short film, okay, but why? So I think you could make a point that we also have to maybe reconsider sometimes our approach to what we do as well, and not take ourselves more important than the audience and the films and the filmmakers.
Yes. First of all, we're not a party festival, so I think we're good. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's a decision also as a festival maker, what kind of festival you want to make. Do you want to be a party festival, or do you want to be a festival that's known for its parties, or do you want to be a festival that's known for its films? Do you want to be both? I think at the end of the day, it's everybody's own decision how they want their festival to be portrayed online or wherever. I mean, I agree there's a group of people that seem to, or you know, there's a lot of posts going on about partying. But also what you said about the audience, I think you always have to keep the audience in mind, because the audience should be the people that we screen the films for. So I don't know, we are an audience. Sorry?
Before it was they are, now they should be. Okay,
I'm confused. Well, now I lost my thought, thank you. It's amusing. No, I mean, we are an audience festival. Also, when we discuss the films in our selection committee, for example, we always discuss how much, because Dresden is a bit conservative, or our audience is a bit conservative when it comes to testing boundaries of films. So we always discuss how far can we go with our selection, and how, you know, we always have to keep the audience in mind to how far can we push them, how far do we want to put the boundaries, or how many like conventional films in that sense will we screen, and so on. So I think for us the audience is always in our mind. And we have a lot of special programs where we have an experimental film program, we have programs where we then also show documentaries and so on, where we can go into different directions, so the audience that is interested in different things can go there to the niche programs, maybe. Does that make sense? Yes?
So, yeah, Gaia and I speak a lot about this cult of the curator. And I'm going to say something that's probably going to be a bit controversial given where I am. But curating isn't a talent. And I think a lot of curators need to remember that. You know, we have a very privileged position where we watch a lot of shorts. We watch a lot of films, and that's how we know what works well, what's good, what isn't. It's not a talent, it's an opportunity, watching lots of films. I would argue there's lots of people that could do what we do. So the idea of curators putting themselves front and center as, this is my program, this is the future, this is what everyone should be watching, this is what they believe. It's, you know, it becomes problematic. It becomes an issue with regards to taking the focus away from the films. It is about audiences. I mean, the point Daniel makes about, you know, what films attract certain audiences. It's worth pointing out, you know, we are film festivals. Film festivals are not, you know, financially well off, so we do need to get audiences into the cinema, to paying audiences in. So so we do have to make those considerations and think about what it is we need to bring in. But I just feel that there is amongst with some programmers there is a desire to be seen to be screening some certain films, not because you believe in them, not because you're going to get an audience at your festival, not because you're going to do anything for that filmmaker, which is also a consideration. I mean, that's certainly something that we consider is like, what would be the point of screening this film if the filmmaker came, would they get anything out of it? Would there be an opportunity for them to develop a new idea, meet a new collaborator, meet someone? Or is it literally just going to be for us to say, yeah, we screened it too? These are the considerations that we need to be making when we're selecting the films. What is the benefit for the audience? What is the benefit for the filmmaker? What is the benefit for the festival? Which order you do those in is dependent on, your own personal ethics, and I suppose, or your own agendas. But these are the considerations. There isn't a right answer and there isn't a wrong answer. Sometimes we do need to screen the films that are doing the rounds because it will get an audience. It might get that filmmaker to come, and that filmmaker will come with their entourage of other filmmakers, and that set will come, and and that will be important for your festival to have that group of people there. Sometimes not. It comes down to a festival by festival basis, I think.
I don't agree. Because I think, I mean, a filmmaker, and he's done maybe some important stuff or has been quite successful with the film. But I assume that 80% of our audience, or even 90% of our audience, don't know that. They don't know. They don't care at the end of the day what films we put on beforehand, because they don't know any of the titles. They don't know the filmmakers unless Gérard Depardieu is maybe in the film. So I don't think having a name is good. Having a name is not necessarily good for the audience. It's probably that's more good for us. It's good for the programmers, because if you guys see that we have a certain filmmaker at our festival, you probably will pay more attention, I would say. But our audience, they don't care. They just want to watch good films, and we want to show them good films, or what we perceive as good films, or maybe also controversial films, because personally I love it when they discuss afterwards and hate or love a film. So.
But that does largely depend on who the audience is. So for instance, for Encounters, we have two very specific audiences. We have, what we call our industry audience, which is made up of filmmakers and the industry in attendance, and then we have our public audience. And you're right, the public audience don't know the filmmakers, they don't know the names. So that's not a consideration. But the other audience do. They are interested in the latest film from so and so.
True. This time I agree. But then you have to maybe live with the fact that maybe you're not screening for the programmers, you're not screening for the people, you're not having, we're not a festival that will present you with the latest shit, basically. We're not. And it's fine. But we don't, I can honestly say we don't. It would be, of course, great that if we also have filmmakers that we not discovered, but they kind of grew up with our festival, and, then they became successful, which is really, really nice, but it's not our main ambition to get you guys to our festivals to watch the latest films and then you take them on. That's other festivals are for that, maybe. I don't know. It's great if you come, and it's fantastic, because we also want you for other reasons at our festival. But the film screenings or the competition programs, they're mainly for the audience, and also for the other. The other filmmakers, we invite them because, of course, we want them to present their films. We want the audience to meet the filmmakers. I think it's relatively easy in Dresden to also mix filmmakers and normal audience. So you are